And welcome back to Tech Writing. So today I wanted to make a video going over the resumes you all looked at and graded and the cover letters you're going to look at this week. I do this so that you all can get a sense of how I am going to approach your application packets and what kind of feedback you can expect. And this will also be a nice refresher of things we need to keep in mind when it comes to creating resumes and writing cover letters. So let's start with DAX here. I completely agree with most of you who say that this resume is struggling. It definitely is. It's frankly not even a passable resume, unfortunately. So let's talk about why. And let's also talk about ways we can improve some of DAX's mistakes. So first of all, the header, as a number of you pointed out, takes up way too much space, and we have too much white space on either side. So remember to balance your quadrants. You want an even disbursement of text and white space on each of the four corners of your page. DAX doesn't do that anytime here. If we look to the left side of the page, it is really empty. We don't want that. Problem number two. And frankly, this is a problem that would likely get his resume tossed out immediately. And that's the objective statement. So if you say something like to obtain an internship with a civil engineering firm, a hiring manager or a potential interviewer reading that is immediately going to see it and think, DAX sent out this exact resume to as many internship positions as he could. It hasn't been specialized at all. It does not use reader-centered language in any way. So if you insist on having an objective statement, you need to tailor it to the job you're applying for. Because if you don't, it will hurt you. Okay, so let's go on to the education section. This is mostly fine, other than I'm not sure why civil engineering is bolded. That's not really necessary here. And don't bold your GPA. A lot of students do this because they're trying to create vectors, which I appreciate. That's very important. But keep in mind, you have 3 capitalized letters and a colon, and then you've got numbers. So you already have interest. Someone's going to look at a GPA immediately because it stands out already. There's no need to bold it. Okay, now then, relevant coursework. Be careful as you're creating your resumes with relevant coursework. You don't just want to do what DAX did here and just list a bunch of classes, because one, that makes you look like a student, and a resume should be more work-centric rather than education-centric. Okay, keep in mind CVs are where you're really going to highlight your education. But also, if you're saying it's relevant and you want to include some classes here, focus more not on necessarily the names of the classes you were enrolled in, but the skill set you gained. Okay, so what are projects you did? What did you learn in those classes that you can apply to the job you're applying for or jobs you're applying for? Spin it. Okay, don't ask a reader to read through a list of a bunch of classes and make sense of why they're there. Honors, it's fine, should be lower down. The only thing, if we're going to have years in here, we need to be consistent with years, and they could be spaced out a little bit. Okay, so see, for instance, he has years on honor roll, but scholarships, we don't have years or semesters for those. Be consistent, right? That's a pretty big thing. Activities, there's another word you could use there, right? Because he's talking about university involvement. That would be a much better header than activities, where that could be anything from rock climbing to something else irrelevant. So be careful with your section headers. And the biggest problem here is DAX actually has work experience that would be relevant to civil engineering internships and jobs, right? And he has a decent amount of experience for someone in college, presumably. That needs to be up directly under education. Never put your work experience at the very bottom of your resume. Okay, so if I were grading Dax's resume as it is right now, it would be a D, and that's me being generous. Okay, let's go on to Jordan Sooner. So header, fine enough. Be careful with mixing your vectors, so bold and italics. Let's not overdo it, okay? Pick one or the other. Now then, with the education, this could be a little more scannable. It could also be a little more organized. Okay, so notice here, again, we have the relevant coursework problem. Spin it. What have you learned from your courses? And keep in mind, if you're a mechanical engineer or like Jordan is here, a civil engineer, this relevant coursework, every other person with a civil engineering degree applying to a civil engineering job has this relevant coursework. Do something with your skills. Stand out from the plethora of resumes a hiring manager is going to be sorting through. Okay, again, major GPA of 3.56, do GPA, 3.56. There you go. The membership here, not really necessary under education, right? This fundamentals of engineering exam, meh. It's just kind of meh. Work experience, this section looks okay. We could move the dates over, right? So remember quadrants. He does a good job with bolding his actual title. That's a good idea. Although we need to be consistent. Is engineering capitalized or is it not? Be consistent. Now then, the one thing, keep in mind when you have your bullet points of duties or however you format your duties, recall parallelism. Okay, so Jordan is really close to that, but we have this one moment where we go from ED endings to an ING. That may not seem like a big thing to you, but it definitely stands out to someone scanning your resume. Now then down here, he did a great job. It's very consistent, very parallel. Computer knowledge, okay. Right? Maybe he could make this a more general section of skills and abilities and add a little more, especially being a civil engineer. Maybe there are some particular engineering skills or certifications he could bring in here. Achievements, it's fine. Okay, so this resume, probably a low to mid B, right? It still needs some work. Now then, let's go on to this last one. So it seems like generally you all thought this was the strongest resume of the group. I agree. However, there are still some things that we can do with this resume to take it from being above average to great. So let's take a look at that. Education. Again, we don't really need to bold the mechanical engineering. That's not totally necessary. We need dates for when this person attended OU, especially since they give their graduation date. Engineering experience, okay, that's a good section, right? Good there. Good parallelism. We have some vectors. It's very scannable. Leadership experience. This one, I don't know about that title. One, it's a little repetitive. I don't know that you want to go from one header with experience to another with experience. Also, we need work, okay? So we need to make this section look like work experience, which this person could definitely do, right? But if I'm scanning this resume, it actually looks like this person hasn't included any work. So that's a problem. Really highlight your work background. Okay. Another thing here, when it comes to listing your jobs and things like that, or even your degrees if you have more than one, you start with the most recent and work your way back. So this resume, we've got August 2014 to present, then we need our other to present next. Okay, then we can do the ones that have ended. All right, activities looks good. That's a good section. We can maybe space it out a little more and fill in some of that white space to the right. Honors and awards, also a strong section. Okay, so this resume, it is good. It's really good, actually. But as you can tell, there are some things we can do to make it even better. So, for me, this resume would be like a high B, maybe a 90. Okay, it's definitely not landing in the upper A territory, but high B, low A range. Okay, now then, let's go on to cover letters. You all are going to look at these and grade these this week, but let's walk through them right now. Okay, so the first good thing, this person has actually addressed the cover letter to Niles Longley. Okay, so you never write to whom it may concern. You need to address your cover letters to an actual person. If you're not sure, try to figure out who the HR representative is or the director of HR. Now then, keep in mind, cover letters are business letter format, so you do need a colon after your dear whomever. Okay, right off the bat, this is a little wordy. Okay, so I would like to request your consideration for the position of R&D engineer. Be concise, folks, especially in a cover letter. You do not have a lot of space to essentially try to get an interview and land a job. So this is not the place to be wordy. I was particularly excited to see an opening within the Hayes Corporation as I've seen your impact in the engineering industry. Okay, this sentence shows promise, but what I would say is, what is Hayes' impact? All right, you want your cover letter to show you've actually done research on the company. So what is Hayes doing that's particularly exciting? What are they doing that's impactful? Okay, show that you've done your research. I would be careful with contractions in cover letters. This is me being very nitpicky, but either you use them or you don't. Be consistent and think about formality, okay? So I've worked in a team of engineers before at Oklahoma University in our unit operations lab. Okay, so apparently at one point OU was Oklahoma University. Didn't know that, but there we go. That's sarcasm, by the way. Also, if I'm Longley and I'm reading this, this paragraph is supposed to be a strong anchor paragraph to get me to read the rest of this letter. I still don't know what this person does for me and why I should interview this person. Okay, so use reader-centered language. Why are you the desirable candidate? Why are you more hireable or more competent or more skilled than the dozens of other people that Longley is looking at their applications? Okay. Also, another really bad wordy phrase here. When I selected the position at your company for R&D engineer, comma, I knew that not only, okay, that's just too much. I'm already not wanting to read the rest of this. I'm skipping over that. Now then, the one thing here, I was a perfect match for its requirements. How so? Okay, show, don't tell. You can't just say, I'm perfect for this job. That's not nearly as strong as spending 2 paragraphs showing your skills and building a picture of you doing the job you're applying to. One of those cover letters is going to get an interview. The other one is probably going to be tossed aside. Okay, so I'm going to skip over the rest of this paragraph. You all can spend more time talking about it this week. The one thing I will say here, this last sentence, it's kind of a dud, right? I would love the opportunity to utilize both my skills as a chemical engineer and as a leader with the development of new research and development. I don't know what that means. And again, if I'm Mr. Longley, sorry for the text message, folks. If I'm Mr. Longley, I still don't know why I should interview this person. And to be frank, if I'm Mr. Longley, I am now putting this cover letter aside. I'm not reading the rest. But for the sake of this, let's keep going. Now then, this paragraph, this was a choice, right? This was a bold choice to talk about being a touring band member. I appreciate that this writer was trying to do something that makes them stand out, and they're trying to incorporate something that's memorable from all the other cover letters that are being read. That's a good choice. Now then, I will say this paragraph still needs to really connect what they're talking about to what the job is asking for. Okay, so remember point evidence analysis. You have to make connections between what you're saying you bring to the table and what the job is asking for. Do not expect your reader to make those connections for you. Simply put, it's not their job, it's yours. Okay, now then, one thing I want to caution you all on here, the I believe statements. I believe I'm a good fit, I think I'm a good fit, I hope you hire me. I get it, when we write those, we're usually trying to be polite and we're trying to defer to the person reading our cover letter. However, what I want to caution you all on is those statements can actually make you sound like you're insecure. Saying, I believe I'm a good fit, does not sound nearly as confident as I'm a good fit because. All right, so you have to sound confident in your cover letter. Also, I would welcome the opportunity to discuss my qualifications with you. Well, I mean, Mr. Longley's going to have to talk to this person about their qualifications in person because this cover letter sure as hell doesn't reveal what they are. Okay, also, my contact information is in the attached resume. Don't do that. You put your contact information at the top of the cover letter. Okay? Now then, one really bad last bit here, unfortunately, the very truly yours. That is a little much for a cover letter. That sounds a little clingy. And, I mean, the phrase very truly yours should really only be used if you're writing a love letter to somebody. Definitely not a cover letter for a job. Okay, so even though there were some bits in here I called bad, I want to be clear, this cover letter has potential. It could be revised. And it can be a much stronger letter with some work. As it stands right now, I would give this a C. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. First of all, this font is one step above Comic Sans, and that's a problem. Okay, so think about professionalism even down to your font choice. Okay, we don't need to italicize the position. That's not necessary. All right. With my engineering coursework and project experience, my innovative mindset and affinity for problem solving, and my history of successful team projects, I believe I'm a strong candidate for this role. Now then, what I hope you all notice here is this person is saying a lot of things that are quite vague, and if I'm Mr. Jones, again, I really don't know how this first phrase is revealing a potentially strong candidate. Okay, so be very concrete and be very clear in how you're a strong candidate. All right, a little bit of a problem here. You still want your cover letters to be scannable. Okay, so this big block paragraph, it's not scannable in any way, and no one's actually going to take the time to read a chunk this big. So we're going to skip over that. I'll let you all get into that and give some feedback this week. The one thing I will say, again, be careful with your last sentences of your paragraphs. They need to be really strong because when it comes to scannability, what I can guarantee is your first sentence will be read and your last sentence will be read for every paragraph, right? So you really want those two sentences to anchor you in strong ways. Okay, I'm very interested in interviewing for this opportunity. Okay, right? I don't know that that's necessary to put here. Also, please don't do the attached is my resume, please find my resume. Don't do that, okay? If someone wants to look at your resume, either They'll read your cover letter, then look at your resume, or they've looked at your resume first. Okay, so sincerely, that is a good sign off for a cover letter. Sincerely, respectfully, those two tend to be the most common. Okay, this cover letter, it's, again, shows potential. It's probably high C, low B. All right, let's go on to this one. Okay, so something I want to say about this one. I have had a couple of civil engineering majors tell me that this type of cover letter is definitely a thing in some parts of civil engineering fields. So I am going to acknowledge students have said that before. Just looking at this cover letter, it seems very truncated to me. However, if it is a situation where you are emailing someone this cover letter, I can see why you would want to condense it a little bit. So let's just keep that in mind as we look at this. All right, again, good job finding the actual person to talk to. Okay, so first of all, this first paragraph, only 2 sentences, and again, no reader-centered language. Martin has no idea why he should interview this person. What are the credentials? What's the interest in the area? How are they a strong match? What are the requirements? Why should he be considered for the position? None of those things are answered here. Okay, the second paragraph, again, needs some work. Although at least we have some quantification, right? 2 years experience in construction project management. That's pretty good. He could build on that though, or they could build on that and really tell us what skills they've developed over those 2 years. What were their duties? What did they do? As an adaptable and versatile professional, that is extremely vague, and I don't know what it means because we don't have any examples of what adaptability and versatility look like here. I offer a willingness to learn new methods and meet demanding standards. Okay, again, I'm just going to say show, don't tell. What does this sentence even mean? Right now, it's not doing anything for this cover letter. Okay, now then this sentence, it could be something really useful. Okay, a well-trained and professional project manager is key to the growth and integrity of any organization. What should have happened here? What would be a great move is to take that start and then really say what they're bringing to the table that makes them well-trained and professional as far as being a project manager. Okay. All right, so, I mean, this one, it does need a lot of work. It's probably a D. Even if it is meant to be emailed and it's meant to be shorter, still needs a lot of work, still a D. All right, and I'm gonna stop here because I don't want this video to be overly long, and I want you all to have the chance to look at least one of these cover letters and bring your own perspective to it without the influence of mine totally. So thank you for watching this, and if you have any questions about anything, let me know. And I look forward to seeing your peer reviews later this week, as well as your feedback on these cover letters. Thanks. Have a good one, folks.